Welcome to FAR Formulas for the CPA exam. The objective of this slides is to introduce you to a method for taking the FAR and formulas in order to help you remember and retain the information you're going to need for a 4-hour exam. If you have a master's degree in accounting, possibly the longest exam that you've had to take is 1.5 hours. Maybe you had a really horrible professor that made it stretch out to 2 hours. You've never taken a 4-hour exam. There's a lot of behavioral conditioning that's required for you to be able to perform for 4 hours. And this video will show you step by step both the methodology that's used for learning and the methodology that's used for retention. Hello, this is Professor Campbell. I'm a CPA from Chicago. I have a master's in educating adults and an MSA. I synthesize these graduate programs to bring about the best way that accountants learn. And I'm going to share with you two very important areas that are specifically applicable to you passing the FAR exam. So I taught at community colleges as well as University of Tampa. So I run the gambit from all different types of students, and they all learned using this methodology. It's very practical. That's the name of DePaul universities. They're very practical learners. So I invite you to follow along and discover the method of learning and the method of retention to pass the FAR exam. It's a chance of a lifetime passing the CPA exam. So this is a really important exam. It's a 4-hour exam. You've never taken a 4-hour exam before in your life. This is going to be able to show you and enable you to have the tools and the readiness to pass the FAR exam. Bloom's taxonomy is what the CPA exam uses on its blueprint. And it's a project management style blueprint. So it's all based in a lot of theory. And one of the theories is Bloom's taxonomy. We have been using this tool in your classes to design how to deliver the class, how to deliver the homework, how to make the exams, how to meet the curriculum objectives that some dean of accounting wrote using Bloom's taxonomy. So whether you know it or not, this Bloom's taxonomy has been leading you around like a horse to water all your college life, and in some cases maybe even your high school and before that. So the AICPA adapted this same Bloom's taxonomy, and this is not something you have to learn, but it's something to keep in mind as you navigate the CPA exam blueprint. And you should have a copy of your blueprint. You can get it at the AICPA website. It's an absolute necessity to have. This is Bloom's taxonomy in a nutshell. It's the concepts of learning. So if we start down at the base with remembering, these are the things that we have to remember. These are utilizing knowledge. Then the next step up is understanding. So the difference between remembering and understanding is you remember a word definition or its characteristics. Understanding is how to use it in a sentence. Applying is the formula method. This is where you will actually apply your formulas, use your calculations, and use your tools that you need. So this is the bulk of the FAR section, remembering, understanding, and applying. And you have to have a basis in all of these in order to get to applying. So analyzing is a different way of looking. Applying moves forward in your thinking. Analyzing looks backwards in your thinking. Did they apply the gap correctly? Did they find the correct inference from the data given? Is there something to correct? This is the analyzing part. Evaluating is only done in auditing, and it's your judgment. Can we evaluate? Do we have sufficient evidence to make a judgment about our opinion? That's evaluating. So that's not tested in FAR. Creative is not tested on any part of the exam. Creative accounting tend to be shunned upon by the profession. If you were being a creative accountant, the SEC might put you in jail for a little while. But in your lifetime, since you are just beginning your careers, creative accounting will come into play in your lifetime as we begin to apply blockchain, AI, and other sources and tools to make our accounting paradigm shift from being one of a manual, using all of these, applying and things like that, to being more evaluative and analyzing things. The whole accounting is going to shift as we begin to apply AI to do all of this applying, understanding, and remembering. So you're lucky you're taking the test now, because a very much higher level of evaluating and analyzing is coming down the road, I believe. That's just my opinion. But let's focus on what we need to do now to pass the FAR exam. We don't need to know all of these. We just have to understand what the Bloom's taxonomy is. Just a quick reminder, the foundation of any question requires remembering and understanding. You should have this knowledge from your textbook, from your Masters of Accounting. It's assumed that you have foundations of the topic in this formula. So this is not a video for intermediate accounting classes or beginning to do foundational accounting or learning how to do accounting. This is after you've already accomplished that. And of course, from remembering and understanding, I highly recommend the mnemonic uses if they work for you. This is a copy of the AICPA blueprint for the FAR exam. It's in their blueprint. And here's where they apply tell you about the various Bloom's taxonomy that they're using in this particular section. So it's representative tasks. If you notice, the arrow goes up from application, analysis to evaluation. So you need a basis in remembering and understanding in order to do applying, in order to do analysis, in order to do evaluation. So it works upward in priority. In this next section, I'll talk to you about how to retain the formulas for the FAR 4-hour exam. And once again, I stated these are repetition style methodologies. It's been used for a long, long time. It follows B.F. Skinner's philosophy of learning, and it's a behavioral conditioning. So what this is doing is creating a behavioral response that as soon as you see what the question asks for, your behavioral response will be the formula that I need for it. Then once you've written the formula, you go back to the data and you find your inputs for the formula, thus eliminating distractors. So that's the overall picture of the methodology. But let's get into some of the nuts and bolts of it. So I'm using two main bodies of research here. One is a study of military academy students where they gave them a laptop, an iPad, and paper and pencil. And they had them take notes in class and reviewed how much they had retained. Well, the people with the laptop retained the least. The people with the iPad or the pencil and paper, they were anticipating in their hypothesis that the results were going to be very close, but they weren't correlated. The iPad produced less retention because you were using computer-assisted things to record your notes and things. The ones that used the paper and pencil had the most retention. There's something about when you write with a pencil, you're writing slower than when you're typing in your iPad. So when you write slower, the material goes into your brain slower and allows it to connect with more neurons along the way. And your mind automatically starts filtering out what is the most important thing about this notes and what is the most important way to connect this with something when you write out by hand. So this turned out to be the most effective way to take notes, according to the military academy research. There's another body of research that has long been quoted, and that is the nurses and doctors. And we want nurses and doctors to be able to remember everything that they're supposed to for patient outcomes. And they found out that lectures, reading, and audiovisual stuff that they were doing in the classroom, memorizing things out of books, memorizing medical procedures and things like that, was not doing them any good. They were not being able to perform using those methods. So they had the lowest amount of retention in those areas. They practice by doing, that's the internship. So even today, if you look at a community college where they're practicing teaching nurses or beginning RNs, they have a classroom that has in front of them the table that they'll see, the patient gurneys that they'll see, the oxygen masks, and everything else like that is very real. They use supplies that are actually used in the hospital in their classroom. So they practice by doing, and the doctors also now practice by doing for a certain number of years. Your practice by doing, 75% retention. Oh, where have we heard that number before? What do I need to pass the CPA exam? Oh, practice by doing. That is the principle in this methodology. You will practice by doing these equations over and over again. If you were an intern and you had to recalculate the earnings per share every quarter that you were at work, you would be doing it at least 4 times a year and a fifth. So practice at least 5 times, 6 times. If you were an intern doing depreciation calculations every month, even though the computer does it for you, okay, but you were checking the computer, or you were an auditor recalculating these numbers, you would be doing every month, 12 months, you would be doing a calculation. So practice it doing it 12 times. It would be the same as if you were an intern for a year, if you practice that equation repetitively at least 6 to 12 times. Do you understand how that kind of works? By the time you get to the 12th month of your internship, oh, you know how to recalculate these depreciation schedules. You know how to check on the programs and things like that. Or if you're doing other work, it will work for you. Teaching others retains 90%. If you want to do this, go ahead and do this. Write up your own PowerPoint presentation. Post a TikTok video. It doesn't matter if nobody sees it, as long as you taught others using a PowerPoint presentation or using a TikTok video and showed them how to do it and did it right. You'll be teaching others and you'll retain 90%. So this is the highest level that you could get to. So what this all means is don't watch the videos. Reperform the action that you see in the video. Reperform it on paper as you're seeing the video progress. Okay, thank you. The methodology is this. We have a piece of paper and in front of us we have a question that came off the screen. The first thing we do is we circle what the task is asking us to do. And then we write out our equation. When we're writing out our equations, we can use letters, assets equals liabilities plus equity, or we could use words, so assets equals liability plus stockholders' equity. Whatever it is that will trigger your memory the best. So if you're math-minded, you might just use initials. If you're words-oriented, you might write out the whole words. Don't type, write out the whole words. So when you look at a multiple choice question, first of all, cover up the answers. Don't even look at the answers because all the wrong answers are in the choices. Write out the equation and then look at what you need. I need assets, I need liabilities, and I need stockholders' equity. Then we go to the problem and we find the data and we put the data underneath our equation and we solve for what we are missing, our X. And that's what it asks us to do. Then we look to the answers and match it up after we solve for X, okay? So don't look at the answers. All the wrong answers will be there. And after you've taken the numbers into your equation, there might be something like the tax rate is 25%. Oh, that's filler. That's distractors. I don't need to calculate any kind of tax burdens in here. Okay. That's how you address a question. And we'll go more into this as we go through the methodology and I show you a demonstration on each. I had a teacher that often said to us, yours is not to wonder why, yours is but to do or die. And I looked at her and I'm like, really? No critical thinking here? Yeah, okay. Repeated writing by hand has a 75% retention. Do it. When the computer is used, you lose points, 75%. You start writing things in Excel, you start writing things on Word, you're going to start losing that 75%. You want to pass, get more than 75%, write it out by hand. Okay, so approaching your questions, you read the last line first, you don't look at the answers, you recall the formula needed for the task, you find the data in the word section, eliminating any distractors, and you match to the answer provided. That's the methodology. The FAR exam has more than 120 distinct formulas. That's a lot. 55% of the FAR is application. 45% is analysis. And we'll get into that later. Analysis has a lot of task-based simulations. So this is primarily working for multiple choice questions, and a few task-based questions are also possible using just application. In analysis, you look backwards over what's there and what should be there. Thinking is required. In application, you think forward to the action. You think forward to the answer. You have to take action. You have to use your calculator. You have to use the formulas. Remembering and understanding are always foundational. Where do we find these formula applications? Well, in Area 1, the balance sheet equation, and I'll show you how some task-based simulation that was actually shared by the AI CPA exam as a representative of their task-based simulations. I will show you how we use assets equals liabilities plus stockholders' equity in an application of task-based simulations to the balance sheet. Earnings per share, weighted average, basic and diluted. These are good multiple choice questions, and I'll show you step by step how to do them. And we will address each one of the different types of variables that can happen in the earnings per share and the diluted methods, okay? Also available are ratios and performance metrics. And these formulas and analysis, the ones that they follow, are provided at the AICPA as a download, and it's over by where the blueprint is. And I strongly suggest that you follow those exactly. If you followed Investopedia's, for example, ratios, you might get the answer wrong. So you must use their ratios the way that they calculate their ratios. In Area 2, we have the mechanics and calculations of assets, liabilities, stockholders' equity. So different things like how to calculate LIFO, FIFO, things like calculating depreciation, calculating lower of cost or market, liabilities, AROs, things like that, and stockholders' equity transactions. All of those are in Area 2, and they should be fairly familiar. In Area 3, we have the heavy-duty work, and we have to really think in these creations of these formulas. Revenue recognition, we have a lot of remembering to do as far as the 5-step. In leases, we have a lot of remembering to do as to how do we apply different steps of the processes. Income taxes and fair value are no cakewalks, and we'll go into how we use the formula method and the repetition method for those heavy-duty areas in 3. This is the AICPA blueprint. And if you notice, it has like prepare a balance sheet, prepare an income statement. So yes, it's an application, but you have to remember, where do the accounts belong? Where do I put different lines? How do I use an underline or a double underline? These things all have to be remembered and understood in order to do the application of preparing a balance sheet. So you have to have that foundation in there. You have to have a foundation in order to make an application, adjust the balance sheet. Well, your journal entries, your debits and credits. It really goes back to the basics you learned in Accounting 101. And all of those things are brought forward very fast in your memory as you work on these things. Analysis, again, is looking back to see, was this correct? Do I need to correct anything else? So that's our application and our analysis. When we have a calculation, we should highlight that. Right over here on the side, a number reference or some kind of page reference, a file reference. Where did you put this information? In a file, you file your papers after you write them all up, you file them in a nice orderly fashion. And you make a mark on here. Did I accomplish at least 10 calculations of foreign tax gains and losses? Did I use the formula for that? And then write your notes here if you've accomplished this particular task, and reference to where you can find your review materials. And if you notice here on Statement of Comprehensive Income, the one that we attach to the bottom of the income statement or make it a separate statement, all you have to do is remember and understand how that statement, the elements that go into that statement. Oh, one of those elements is foreign exchange. Yeah, there's a calculation for that, but that's in a different part. It's realized. All right. That's how we use our blueprint. I strongly advise you to download that blueprint and the analysis formulas from the AICPA website. Thank you. Okay, this is Professor Campbell. Thank you for watching this video. I hope this piques your interest in how you can use the blueprint and the Bloom's taxonomy to make your learning more efficient. And I hope you use the retention techniques in the methodology that I'll show you. And I'll post these videos occasionally, 2 to 3 times, possibly a week. We'll have a different calculation and a different procedure for you to do. And one of the things that if you ask AI, okay, go ahead and Google AI and say, what is the key to retention of college level material? And they'll tell you a few hints and things like that. And one of them is writing things out by hand is an active, not a passive. They'll tell you that one of the things you should do is practice it, and then 24 hours, do it again, 48 hours, do it again, and then do it 1 week later after that 48 hours. That will test your retention abilities. So that's one way to also enhance that 75%. If you need to make sure that you got yourself up to 80% or so, is to use that repetition spacing. 24 hour, 48 hours, 1 week later. So you're going to repeat the process 3 times. That's pretty good. Okay. Go ahead and post your notes. If you have a question, I will answer them. I am also available to do a private session if you'd like on Google Teams. Google Teams I'm using. And we could meet, and I am not face-to-face. If you notice, I use an avatar of myself. I'm currently undergoing cancer therapy, so this is the best picture of me right now, is my avatar. And it will stay that way for as long as I live, and it'll be a long time. All right, that's the reason you're seeing the avatar and you're not seeing my face, because I don't matter. You matter the most. So keep your notes positive. Stay positive in order to manifest passing this far section. Once again, this is a test of a lifetime. Invest your time. By the way, I invested 500 hours on my CPA exam, the entire exam. So at least 125 were dedicated to FAR exam. One other hint, get yourself over to Amazon and buy a loose leaf version, 2022 or later version of Intermediate Accounting, where you can find even more fun questions to practice on your equations. And as we all know, we can take those textbook questions and put it into our ChatGPT or our Gemini, whatever, and make sure that we have the right answers that we're using and applying our formulas correctly. So everything's on the internet to check and support you, but this is the methodology that wins. And you can ask your AI the same question, and this is what they will come up with. So let's do this. Let's pass this exam. Let's get it over and done with.